June 2025 marks my company Learnit's 30th anniversary. And I've been thinking a lot about all these years, and not necessarily lately about the entire 30 years, but most importantly, the last 10, and really about how I've evolved as a leader. And when it comes to being a leader, I think it's critically important that you're constantly reflecting and you're being very intentional and you're asking yourself questions to kind of see where you're at with your leadership. I've created this, I call it the 3 threes. And these are 3 questions that I like to ask myself. Number 1 is, what have I gotten better at as a leader? Number 2 is, what have I stayed consistent with? And number 3, most important, where do I need to go? What do I need to do to improve? And as I mentioned, for me, this isn't a one-time thing. It's an exercise I do at least twice a year. The 3 threes has become my version of a leadership audit. What I want to do is let you see behind the scenes of what I actually think about when it comes to me being a leader and how I assess myself. And hopefully there are 1 or 2 areas that you really connect with. And you may say, hey, you know what? That's an area I want to get better at. And I really like Damon's story about what he did. Or maybe it just really inspires you and you say, oh, I think that's great that he struggles with delegation because that's something I've been great at. All right, before we go any further, you're going to want to stick around to the very end. I've got some great giveaways and gifts for you in celebration of Learnit's 30-year anniversary. Welcome to the Learn It All podcast, the show for today's leaders who want to get ahead and stay ahead because we believe great leaders aren't born or made, we're always in the making. I'm Damon Lembi, 2-time best-selling author and CEO of Learnit, a live learning platform that over these 30 years, we've upskilled more than 2 million people. All right, let's get started with the first category, which is what I think that I've gotten better at. Number 1, I think, and this is the absolute most important, is delegation. I feel like I've always been a pretty decent delegator over the years. You know, I didn't have to have my hands in everything, but for the longest time, I still thought it was necessary to be in the business more than working on the business. And the number 1 area that I spent way too much time was in resource management, whether it was assigning instructors, room allocation. And I thought that what I was doing was benefiting Learnit. I thought, hey, I was connecting our instructors with the clients that they were going to be better at. I felt like it was saving money on the budget. And I actually, honestly, really enjoyed it. And I thought I was helping. And it took me until just about 4 or 5 years ago when I realized that as much time as I was spending doing this, it wasn't scaling Learnit or moving the needle anywhere near as much as it should have been. And so what I really did at that time is I already trusted my team and I knew I needed to step back and get out of it. And really, quite frankly, the thing that helped the most with making this transition and learning to even delegate better and completely step out of the day-to-day was COVID. Now that we're all working remotely and we weren't seeing each other on a regular basis, I had to lean into trusting my team even more. And it was a huge change for us. And it kind of started with me first looking at Michael Hyatt's Freedom Compass, where in there, I'll put a link to it, but he talks about things like, you know, what are you passionate about? What could you automate? And it helped me really do an assessment of what was important to me. And I realized I had to get out of the day-to-day. When I did step out of the day-to-day and had nothing more to do with resource management, our gross margin went up 3 to 5% a year. Our instructor scores went way up and the team was happy. So after all, I was more the bottleneck than anything else. And I think this is a very important lesson for all you leaders out there, where sometimes you feel like you're helping, but if you have a great team, especially like I do, then you need to step out of their way. And when it comes to delegating, one of the best things you can do is work with them. When it comes to whatever priority it is, work with them, set clear expectations, give them a timeline, a budget, or whatever, and then get out of the way. Let them do it their way without your interference or micromanagement. As long as they're doing it with integrity and they're hitting their deadlines and budgets, who cares how they get it done? And it will have an incredible impact on your team. The final thing I want to say about delegation before I move on is, as a leader, you should reframe handing off these tasks, not as just work to do, but as learning opportunities. What might be mundane to you can be a great growth opportunity for other people on your team. And when you look at it that way and they look at it that way, it's a win-win for everybody. Number 2, an area that I've drastically improved is around my own personal brand and leadership. For the first 20, 25 years of Learnit, I was an inside CEO. I spent all my time managing the sales team, going on sales calls. Again, behind the scenes really is where I spent all my time. And in doing so, I hopped on the podcast guesting trail, and eventually here I am as a podcast host. And I've constantly been on LinkedIn posting and sharing my point of view. And it's significantly expanded my own personal network, and it's tied directly back to Learnit. One of the largest deals we've ever had as a company came directly through some of the work I did on my personal brand work. And so for you leaders out there or people who want to be leaders, you need to be public facing now. Get out there, get on stages, get on social media, share your point of view. And you may be thinking to yourself, nobody really cares what I have to say, or I don't have enough experience to do that. Trust me, you do. We all have experiences. And I think it's absolutely critical these days. And it's incredibly important for you to be out there sharing, connecting with people. And one more thing I want to say before I move on from personal brand is the approach I take isn't to talk about how great I am, how many awards Learnit has, nothing like that. It's all about the mindset of giving and adding value and helping others. And if you keep that in mind, you'll be super successful with it. Another area I think I've improved upon over the last 10 years is decision making. Now, a recent McKinsey study showed that leaders spend 40% of their time making decisions. So why aren't we investing more time when it comes to decision making? Since you're here today, a gift I have for you is if you want to get better at decision making, here is my book, Good Decisions Equal Success, with my wonderful partner, Candace Porter, and send me a note. I'll send you a free copy of it. So why is decision making important? I've avoided the sunken cost more often. Sunken cost is when you're throwing good money after bad. A very quick example is we invested in an office building for Learnit. Since we spent so much money on it, my first reaction was we have to move into it. But then when you look at the direction Learnit was going and we were all remote, it wasn't the right strategic move or financial move. And so we just cut our losses. And that's a great example of avoiding the sunken cost fallacy. I've also learned to control my emotions more when it comes to decision making. It's not always a bad thing, but sometimes you get excited and you make decisions from your gut or from emotion. So I've toned that back a little bit. I've learned about, not being stuck in binary thinking. Adding in options, the Heath brothers said in their great book, Decisive, improves your chance for success when it comes to decision making 30 to 60%. That's a crazy great number. One term I've developed over the past 10 years is called Purposeful Awfulizing. And so when that's an important decision, instead of having rose-colored glasses on, you look at your decision you're about to make and you fast forward a year. If it goes absolutely terrible, can you survive that decision? And if you can't, if it's going to bankrupt you, if it's going to cost you your best employees, then really go back to the drawing board and figure out what you can do different. Now, here's the thing. You can spend all the time you want in the world when it comes to decision making, and sometimes it just doesn't turn out the way you want it to. But the best thing you can do is learn from those mistakes and do better next time. Learnit's got a great class when it comes to decision making, and since I'm in a great mood and we're here giving away gifts, I'll give you a complimentary seat in that as well. So hit me up on LinkedIn and tell me that you want to get better at decision making, and you'll get a free code to take our live instructor-led class. So again, to recap the 3 areas that I think I've made improvement on, again, I'm not perfect, but it's delegation, which is absolutely critical for you, personal brand, and then third is decision making. So now I want to move on and talk about 3 areas I believe I stayed consistent on. And I think that's really important as a leader to have that consistency of things and reflect back at when you're going through this audit to make sure that those are the things you want to be consistent on. And so number 1 is Learnit's always been a people-first organization. I believe I'm a people-first leader. And when it comes to being a leader, just like being a baseball coach, in order to win through your team, people have to feel psychologically safe that they can go out, they could try things, that they can make errors and fail at something. And you look at them more as learning moments, like Gary Ridge said on my show, than, failure. And they're great learning opportunities. And people first organizations, it's all about trust. So in order for you to win through your team, You need to have an organization that has a psychological safety for their team members so they feel safe when it comes to making mistakes. Like they can go out and try things and experiment. And if things don't go well, they're not going to get reprimanded. Your leader might sit down with you and help you learn from those mistakes and coach them on that. And when you do, when you show them that it's okay to make mistakes and that you have their back, that's where trust comes in. And I think trust is so key and super important. So the number one thing I feel like I've been consistent at over the last 10 years, and I really believe over the last 30 years, is I feel like I'm a people first leader. I have a strong belief in, as a leader, that you win through your team. As a coach, when it comes to baseball, you're not out hitting the ball, you're there supporting your team and you win through them. Sometimes that's a challenge, especially for new leaders who are used to doing things themselves. In order to be a people first leader, you have to create the psychological safety and trust that's so important. Your team members need to know that it's okay that they make mistakes, that you can turn those into learning moments, and that you trust them and you have their back. And when you do those things, people will elevate their game to the next level. And what do people want right now? They want to feel like there's purpose, that they belong, and that they're cared for in their organization. And one way to do that I've been mindful over the years is to make sure that you express your gratitude for the work they do. And when you have conversations with them, don't just jump into work, ask them how they're doing and really listen to what they're doing. The second area that I feel like I've been consistent at over the last 10 years are the core traits of what I believe to be a Learnit leader. And those are humility, integrity, courage, taking ownership, and most of all, curiosity. Humility is, don't be afraid to say you don't have all the answers. Surround yourself with great people. Give them the opportunity to help you. Nobody wants to work for a know-it-all. Integrity, do the right thing all the time. Accountability, I mentioned it before. If something doesn't go well, own up to it. I also want to point out, if your team is successful, even if it's your idea, give them the credit. When it comes to courage, what I mean is leaders need to get out of their comfort zone. Too many leaders protect their own comfort zone. And what great leaders do is they realize that sometimes they have to make bold, tough decisions. Maybe that's a personnel change that's tough to address. Maybe it's taking a product that's been successful, but no longer profitable or not the right direction and sunsetting it. So you have to have the courage to make the right decisions. And finally, curiosity. This whole 3x3 audit is all about curiosity. How can I do things better? What am I doing well right now, but how do I continue to learn and grow and do better? And these days, especially, you should be saying to yourself, how do I do this better with leveraging AI? Number 3 on my list, when it comes to what I feel like I've been consistent at over the years, is modeling the behavior I want to see from my team. If you want your team sharing on LinkedIn and other social channels, you need to be doing it yourself. If you want people to get out of their comfort zone, you need to be doing it yourself. You need to be leading by example. I feel like I've been doing that on these podcasts, on getting on stages, doing presentations. And I believe very strongly that you can't ask your team to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. One great tip when it comes to modeling behavior is if your team is going through training or coaching or whatever it is, participate yourself. Show them that you're there and that you're contributing and you're rolling up your sleeves and you're doing it with them. And so let's move on to one of the most important areas that I think that every leader should be looking at. And that is, what are the areas they can improve upon? We really need to do a better job at clarifying and communicating our shared purpose or North Star. I say we because I don't think that any organization should construct their North Star or shared purpose in a vacuum, and you should collaborate with your team, at least your executive team. And the reason why I've added this to the top of my list is we're currently going through Keith Ferrazzi's great book, Never Lead Alone, and he's got diagnostics in there, and they're really survey questions for your team to see how you're doing. And we scored very high as an organization when it comes to enjoying working with each other. But we scored rather low when it comes to understanding the overall purpose and goals of Learnit. Now, I'm not going to make any excuse, but this has become difficult or more difficult over the years as we're working remotely because we don't see each other all the time and people are doing their own things. And sometimes that creates silos and even communication lapses. But I realize that, and that's top of my list to improve upon. And the reason why that's so important for all you leaders out there is you want everybody on your team, when it comes to decision making, that all the decisions and choices they make are aligned with their department goals and the shared purpose and goals of your organization. So it's really on me and our leadership team to clearly define what Learnit's shared purpose is, communicate that out to the team and give everybody that roadmap and direction to drive towards it. Number two, which is critical, is navigating change, especially in this age of AI. AI is going to disrupt everything, and it's kind of yet to be seen what it's going to do to the learning and development field. Both internally, how do we leverage AI to better serve our customers, to be more efficient, to free up time for us to do better work, and to also challenge our assumptions. There's so many things we can do. But on the product side, how do we leverage AI to make our customer experience better and our learning more sticky? And because if we don't do it, our competitors are in 12 to 18 months. And if we don't navigate this correctly, it's going to be a big issue for us. And one reason why it's a challenge to navigate change, first and foremost, people don't like change, but also if things are going all right as they are right now and you fall into complacency, you don't realize that you even need to change. And that's one thing that I'm very intentional about, is being curious and having a sense of urgency, knowing that we can't afford to let Learnit fall behind. Nobody wants to be the blockbuster of the L&D space. So as you can see, we've covered 2 of my 3 areas I need to improve, and they're really more on the business than in the business. We discussed the importance of a shared purpose, and then we discussed navigating change. And you can't do either of these in a vacuum. So you want to start off and you want to have a great team, which I have. Now, another area where I think I really need to improve upon in helping Learnit is I want to establish a structured advisory board, of outside people who can help with Learnit. We've done a great job actually of leveraging fractional talent over the last 7+ years. And that's bringing in people who are CFOs, chief revenue officers, human resource departments who are outside our Learnit bubble and give us ideas of how to do things differently, seeing how things are done in other organizations, other industries. But with that being said, I think what really Learnit needs is a formal advisory board, people we can turn to and ask questions to who could help us navigate through this change. Also, something you might find interesting is I'm working with my executive team and we're creating an AI advisory board. So we'll have a human advisory board and we'll have an AI advisory board. And this all helps you challenge your assumptions, make better decisions, and getting these outside opinions are going to help us navigate this change and lead us towards that shared purpose that I was discussing. So that's it, everybody. That's my leadership audit, my 3x3. I've shared where I've grown, where I've stayed consistent, and where I still need a lot of work to do. And you've found something in there that you want to get better at. Maybe you want to get better at delegation. Maybe you want to figure out how your organization can better leverage AI. Well, figure out what it is and take those steps. And I highly recommend you create your own version of a leadership audit, and you do it at least twice a year. Doing something like a leadership audit, like my version of the 3x3, it's a great way to take an inventory of where you are as a leader. And it's not always about where you need to improve, but you should give yourself a pat on the back on the progress you have made. I think that's super important. So as a thank you of finishing this episode, here's what you got to do. Send me a LinkedIn message, okay? Either connect with me and say, Learnit happy 30th birthday. I don't care when this happened. And I will send you a hat, my 2 books. And so thank you for letting me share my journey with you today. And please, if you haven't already, rate and review the Learn It All podcast on your favorite platform. It really helps us get our message out. And until next time, everybody, stay curious, keep learning, have a great day. And here's to another 30 years at Learnit. Thank you.